Fallout 4 just received what I would call its best mod ever, and as I'm sure many of you are aware, the mod in question I am referring to is Sim Settlements 2. And I gotta say, out of all of the mods, probably thousands at this point, I've covered for Fallout 4 and even just any Bethesda game in general over the years, this is probably the single closest mod to feeling like a true to form official DLC. Just between the quality of the content itself, the type of content getting added in, how naturally and progressively it fits in and evolves in your game, and I genuinely think if you just added this to the game, most people wouldn't realize they're actually playing a mod. So in this video, I want to tell you all about that. In addition to Sim Settlements 2 itself, there are a few other tertiary mods that I think will be pretty helpful or vastly improve your experience. But even further, before we dive too deeply into that, why don't we talk about what exactly Sim Settlements 2 is on a high level? Because just going from Sim Settlements 1 to Sim Settlements 2, it's not inherently obvious what it's doing. So one of the first ones that may not be as obvious at a first glance is just the optimization, or really the developers learning from Sim Settlements 1. The mod itself came out in 2017, and shortly thereafter we saw two major expansions with Rise of the Commonwealth and Industrial Revolution. And through this track, you could pretty clearly see how they took that core concept of just having a little plot of land you place down so your settlements automatically build themselves and it's not as hands-on to you, and really built upon that with the subsequent updates and expansions, until eventually we got two fully fledged cities with a myriad of plot types as well as full-on automation. So now in one regard, Sim Settlements 2 is really just an improvement on that, a recreation of many of those original features of the mod. So one, they're just a lot more intuitive, implemented in a much nicer way. Even little things like not using the special menu in the build menu of Fallout 4 now actually has its own menu. If you played a lot of Sim Settlements 1, you will definitely notice just a lot of little quality of life things, but even further performance upgrades. My performance with Sim Settlements 2 is just consistently better than that of Sim Settlements 1. It's not a comprehensive remake of everything that was in the first one with those two expansion packs, but it's pretty close. But then even further, the second major category is a ton of new features implemented with this. We'll talk more about these as we get deeper into the video, but there is simply more functionality and more things you could do with your cities in Sim Settlements 2, whether it be new and additional plot types, additional ways to kind of manage your city and eventually empire overall, whether that be through taxation, different features you unlock naturally just as you progress and discover new things. So progression feels pretty organic, almost like there's a behind the scenes technology tree that you'll unlock things from. So if you're just building up one of your cities, you'll definitely notice a lot of new stuff if you're coming from that past version. But one of the huge parts that definitely deserves a monumental amount of praise for this is the third major addition that I really want to focus on first, and that is the storyline that is added with this. And this is something that is just truly next level for a Fallout 4 mod, and really I would say for just a Bethesda mod overall, whether it be Elder Scrolls or Fallout, because all of this is introduced to you in a totally new questline. This being a new main questline that you can participate in, kind of separate from the vanilla questline. It's just going to really introduce you into city building as well as give you some incentive to build up the Commonwealth. I would say the questline's really structured in a way that the first few parts are mostly focused on discovering how you could build up cities and explaining the automation process in a lore-friendly way. And then as you continue on, it'll be more conflict focused with certain tasks or trying to help people. Your objectives aren't just learning about this tool you have, but rather trying to do something with that tool or help those that you've been with along the way. But really just the quality all throughout this is phenomenal. Across the quest, you're going to be helping out this one main character, and just take a listen to his voice acting.
It's called an ASAM sensor. If you're going to be building settlements, these things are what you'll want to use. I think a demonstration is in order. Place that ASAM down on the ground somewhere. Go ahead. Any old spot will do.
Are you going somewhere with this?
Okay. I can see you're not enjoying the performance. I'll quit with the bad acting. But please, keep listening. You see, what an ASAM does is allow pretty much anyone to build themselves whatever they might need.
The voice acting all throughout this mod is just truly next level. This is one of those features that many times mods get wrong, because admittedly it's pretty freaking difficult to find people with a good quality mic, quiet background, and just the talent to express emotion and character just across your voice. Especially when you have to find someone that can do all that for free, considering most of these mods don't have any budget for voice acting. The main character in this one is just phenomenally voiced. I don't know who they got to do this role, but it is top tier. Literally the best voice acting and character performance from any mod I've ever played for a Bethesda game. He's really your introduction and more or less companion throughout much of the main story. And I wouldn't be shocked if after finishing this, or at least progressing to a certain point in this story, you walk away with him being just one of your favorite characters from Fallout 4 overall. It's really one of those things that I feel like I can't adequately show you on video because, you just have to have the experiences with him, but please take my word for it, this is a phenomenal performance and something very, very impressive. But what this main story is going to do is initially take you over an explanation as to how this Sims settlements technology is even possible. I know that the voice acting in this character is one of the big reasons this mod feels so special. There's a lot of other ones, even just on some of these initial quests. Some of the custom effects they created and just the implementation of this overall feels so Bethesda, like there was an actual budget and money thrown at this. And although yes, that core character is one of the best and standout performances from this mod, that's not to say all of the other voice acting or performances are bad.
No one understands that better than Robco. Our ASAM sensor technology offers citizens unrivaled freedom of DIY home design.
Actually, across the board, every single NPC I interact with, and there are numerous, just sounded great, like it was actual official content coming directly from Bethesda. I would probably be praising this mod even without this core character for the voice acting because it's just that good and that much better than basically everything else out there across the board. But even outside of just the quality of this, it also was implemented in a pretty cool way. As for some of those initial quests, you'll be introduced and kind of get explained the backstory of the ASAM sensor so it makes sense in the world overall. But then of course, naturally, you're going to want to unlock new things. So then the story will take you down a path of unprecedented grounds, where you'll be heading to new locations, perhaps fighting people, or perhaps just doing tasks with people to unlock the secrets of the ASAM sensor, as well as unlock additional features for settlement building along the way. And this was one of the really fun parts of this overall. The way this was formatted was, you'd start the main quest, do a couple of quests with this character, he would introduce you to a new feature, and then you'd kind of have a break. You'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go here, take your time, or give me a couple of days in-game time to figure something out. So then you just unlocked a totally new feature around settlement building and you could mess with it. You would have a bit of a break to do that, maybe do some other Fallout 4 quests. It definitely feels like this was intended to be a middle ground where you could do something else for a little bit. And of course, settlement building is a perfect thing to do in this interim. Then you'd return, do a few more quests, unlock some cool new features, and by that time your settlement would be a bit bigger and you could try out those new features or new plot types with some of these settlers that had arrived. It's a really cool dynamic and it feels like it's well thought out in that it's a good balance. Many Fallout 4 mods have one or the other, either a cool story that is entertaining or interesting, or a cool new feature that you'll get hours of replayability on. This one has both and they're actually meshed together in a really good way. I know some of you might be thinking, oh, you have to play the story to unlock things. There's actually a cheat mode in the console, so if you just want to unlock everything right off the bat and not deal with the story whatsoever, you can do that. You're not forced into doing any of this if you don't want to. And something else they did pretty cool here, during this you'll actually go to several existing Fallout 4 locations. So what they've done oftentimes is actually add in new NPCs there, but NPCs that feel like they should kind of be there, which was a nice touch. It just kind of made it feel all that much more well integrated into the world overall. I don't want to spoil too much about this story, but as you continue down, you'll of course continue to unlock new features for your settlement, but also there are more story or drama elements. I don't mean that in a sense that it's over dramatic, but just conflicts will arise. You'll meet new NPCs as well as new factions, and then there'll be some fighting you'll have to handle. And again, I don't want to spoil too much, but really my point here is this does evolve into a real story. It definitely starts off more tutorial or informative. You're learning new things, you're unlocking new things, but then it really does evolve into an actual story-based questline, which was pretty awesome. It still is very much so focused around the settlements of the Commonwealth and in fact giving you additional incentive to help them. Not just another settlement needs your help, it goes quite a bit deeper than that. Again, I don't want to spoil too much. Currently we have kind of the first part of this story, but there are plans to expand on this with DLCs and likely DLCs bringing additional functionality to settlements. And this is no small experience. I don't know exactly how long it is comprehensively because it's a lot of back and forth of editing settlements, then doing some story quests, but it's definitely a 4+ hour experience at least thus far for me. You're definitely not just going to bang the story out in 25 minutes or an hour. But something else they do with this, which I absolutely love and I think is a really cool feature, is interesting settlers. So as a part of the main quest line, you're introduced into a couple of settlers, these just more being plot devices or people to kind of showcase what these cool new plots can do. But even further, at points you'll just be recommended, hey, there's some settlements over here that could use our help, perhaps you should go check them out. Or even some people showing up to your settlement requesting help from you. And several of these are actually pretty in-depth, not just a 5-minute go here, shoot this, and you're done, although there was a couple of those, but some had real storylines, introduced into a settler, introduced into a bit of a conflict, and having to help them fix that. And although some of this was just really interesting content in its own right, a few of these had some pretty cool twists, it also had the other effect of making it so you just have way more of affinity towards these settlers. You'll find them roaming around your camp. They'll be named NPCs among the nameless settlers, and I really think this is a cool touch overall. It made the otherwise forgettable settlers at your settlements actually be a bit more memorable. You cared about them quite a bit more due to their now known backstory and whatever experiences you may have had with them previously. So in addition to that main quest being several hours in length and really the meaty part of the story content, there's at least a couple more hours of the side quest for settlers, giving you their background as well as having some cool experiences with them. And really, that's just the story part. That alone would be phenomenal. Let's say in no way did it improve or evolve on Sim Settlements 1. It was just a story expansion adding on to Sim Settlements 1. It would be a great mod and probably one of the best ever in that right. But this mod also comes with a ton of additional functionality, both in the sense of what additional features and functionality were added to the Sim Settlement system, but even further, what other modders can do with this as a framework. Sim Settlements was the most modded mod for Fallout 4, and Sim Settlements 2 takes that to a whole different level. So if you enjoyed Sim Settlements 1 at its core, and with its two main expansions, Rise of the Commonwealth and Industrial Revolution, this mod largely includes nearly all of those features. If you're a longtime user of Sim Settlements, if you've been relying on that to explore settlement building in Fallout 4, you'll feel right at home with this one. The 6 core settlements do make a return, that being the residential, commercial, agricultural, martial, industrial, and recreational plots, but they make a return with some additional functionality. Settlers now actually have a special stat associated with them that you can scan and find out about, and this special stat will impact their performance at particular plot types. So for example, settlers with high charisma will generate more caps at commercial plots. A nice little note on this, many of those unique settlers that you get through quests or unique interactions with this mod do tend to have just boosted special stats, so they definitely are preferential, both in that they have much more backstory and depth, but also in functionality and their efficiency at certain plots. And although yes, you can just go around manually scanning and assigning settlers at will, there also is a functionality where raise special stats for settlers, which is now implemented as an additional feature on recreational plots. These previously were really focused around raising a settlement's happiness, but now they have some additional options there. Otherwise, all of your favorite things are still there, whether it be regular plot types, foundation-based plot types, or even just those interior plots. But there also is a new plot type added in with this, that being the municipal plot. This offers in some pretty interesting mechanics in that you could actually use this to either establish itself as a source of water or power, that being something you otherwise kind of had to do manually, but separately for some more practical things, like establishing caravan services between local settlements or even collecting taxes at a settlement. It's a pretty cool one. It definitely seems like something that'll continue to get expanded on in the future, making these settlements feel more like functioning cities and actually having some of the infrastructure offered via this new plot type. One of the other pretty cool things is you will naturally just start to make discoveries and unlock additional functionality as you build up a settlement. So one of the common ones that you'll notice pretty early on is you can unlock the functionality of having multiple settlers use a singular plot type at a given time. So for example, you could have some houses that will support several settlers at a given time, and actually with upgrades can support more settlers over time. So it might support 2, but then as your prosperity goes up and the house upgrades, it'll actually support 4 people instead. And this is pretty nice in that it can provide for some organic growth. Your settlements can grow in population without you having to place more and more plots down over time. But this also is dependent on the plot type. In my testing, it seemed like a lot of interior plots were more exclusive to one settler at a time, and depending on which building or structure you place down, including with some mods out there, it may support one or several settlers using it at once. And that's just one of the things you can unlock. There's a wide variety, and you'll get little pop-ups all throughout that do alert you, hey, you can now do this in your game. One of the other big things is UI improvements, which you'll see pretty much across the board with Sim Settlements 2. Right off the bat, it has its own menu and and subsections, and everything here just looks a lot better. It's a lot more functional than having to rely on the special menu for everything like we did previously, but overall it definitely makes navigation a lot simpler. It has built-in support to actually raise the build limit of your settlement by certain amounts, so pretty quickly I actually hit the build limit, and then I just could use sim settlements to raise that and make it more or less a non-issue for me. Even further, when you actually enter into build mode, you'll find little indicators on each of the plots that tell you how many people are living there, what type of plot, what it needs, and overall the on-screen HUD was just condensed and made a lot cleaner and I think easier to read. Follow these numbers or follow these bars and you'll know if you're doing well. In large part, this is a good one in that many of the old features are returning. You still have things like building automated cities. Just assign a city leader and then a giant city will be built for you. You can still go in and edit it. It actually is using several new city plans, which is pretty nice if you're familiar with some of those from Rise of the Commonwealth, but the vast majority of that core and fundamental functionality from Sim Settlements 1 is making a return with Sim Settlements 2. There's just a bunch of other things built atop that, several of which you'll discover by doing this questline. I don't want to spoil too much on that as they are pretty cool reveal moments around some of the new features. But then lastly, one of the other big parts of this that is pretty cool and special is the increased modability of Sim Settlements 2. So right at the release of this one, we had several add-on packs get released, adding in additional plot types and just additional functionality overall. I'll have links to these down below. I honestly feel like if you're using Sim Settlements 2, it's kind of a no-brainer to just download them. You'll find more variation in some of the buildings in the background. These can be automatically selected, or you could manually select them to kind of give little sections of your town or just entire settlements a certain theme. But something else pretty cool, for several of these, they actually give you additional functionality. Wasteland Venturers in particular will actually add in plot types that will do things that'll either make it so you can have a more condensed version of a water generator, for example, or even something like a barracks, which is a 3x3 residential plot that could actually house more people, but of course at the cost of taking up more space. All these are really nicely integrated in the sense that you actually will unlock some of the features of these mods by progressing the settlement system overall. So they're kind of integrating into that discovery feature that is added in with this. As your settlement grows and you continue to build it up, you'll unlock new things to build, like many Sim Settlements games actually function. And considering this mod just came out a few days ago, you could definitely tell this is just the beginning of these. Just right off the bat, these mods are adding in almost 200 new building plans, and you can imagine as months go on and people continue to build on this, we'll see a lot more. One of the really cool aspects of Sim Settlements 2 is it's actually making modability way more accessible. They offer up some things like making new city plans so you could actually have different layouts at an automated city, or even conversely, just new plot types, having plot types do different things, be different sizes, of course, look different. But even further, this time around, there's a lot you could do with custom leader traits, or even using some of the quest templates to write your own storylines for some of these add-on packs. So I wouldn't be shocked if down the road we start to see Sim Settlements 2 add-on quests that are kind of their own quest lines, probably around settlement building, or at least around whatever theme of settlement pack it is. But still, this is probably going to be a pretty interesting space to watch expand and grow. If you're somebody looking to get into modding, this is a way more accessible way to do it than just starting from scratch in the creation kit. One of the unfortunate downsides of something on this scale is it has had a moderately buggy release, in that several bugs have definitely popped up in the wake of this, people having problems one way or another. But before that deters you too much, there's actually been a hotfix nearly every day over the past few days, fixing some of those major issues to pop up. But even further, there's a support forum where there's been a ton of activity, whether it be from community members or official team members that are actually posting responses to issues. And even King Gath himself posted a video response to this, mentioning some of the complications they ran into at the final hour. And I gotta say, just overall, as far as the bugginess with a fan-made mod that's made for free, they've probably handled this better than many AAA game companies, and even in some regard had a quicker response than certain AAA game companies to patching some of these bugs. But even with that said, if you're looking to play Fallout 4 and have just a totally transformed experience, whether you just want to do the story or you really want to focus on building large and sprawling settlements, this is the definitive mod out right now. It's probably the best mod I've ever played for this game. We know in the future there's only more on the way, more mods from the community, more content releases from the actual developers. We're on chapter 1 of the story right now, but there definitely is more coming. And you can be certain that this is not going to be the last time I'm talking about Sim Settlements 2. So either way, I'll have links to the PC and Xbox version of the mod as well as the official website down below. Hopefully you guys found this one informative. It is pretty awesome that we're getting just free content like this for us to all enjoy and experience. But But with that said, I thank you all again for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.